Hey everyone, Tara Lynn here. It is time for Stars and Rainbows. Welcome. If you're going to dot along with me, a few things you might need. So in the membership, if you'd like to have this step-by-step guide handy, you can have that set aside to follow along. Tonight I am working on a 13 millimeter surface. It's about 5¼ inches. Of course, you can use any size surface as long as you have that size circle on there. I've got my background painted black. When working with rainbow palettes, changing up the background color drastically changes how it looks. So you can choose whatever background color you'd like. This design is not particularly difficult. I gave it 2.5 dots out of 5. The most difficult part of this is the stars, and everything else is pretty straightforward as far as dots, but sometimes the simple designs turn out the prettiest. So I like to go back to basics occasionally. If you are following along with me live, if you want access to the chat, if you click on the YouTube part of the video, usually it's at the bottom of the screen, that'll take you to the YouTube platform and you can participate in the chat. The rainbow set of designs this month, you can use any of the color palettes that you choose or come up with your own color palette. I'm going to be using the tropical rainbow today. So specifically the colors that I have are tea berry, tangerine, cadmium yellow, paradise green, ultramarine blue, and poetic plum. Hello, Heather. You can see here I've got my colors set out, and you will also want white because we are making our stars with white. You can have any set of 6 rainbow colors: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple, in any combination you'd like. You can use fluorescents, pastels, bright bold colors, whatever you want to do. So let's get started. I've got my 16 arm stencil put on my surface here, and I'm going to go ahead and get rocking. So to begin with, we're going to have a 12 millimeter center dot in purple. Now when I refer to these colors, whatever color purple you have is fine. So I'm just going to use the generic red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So 12 millimeter center in purple. Usually I have to fix up these large centers, and when we're working with large tools, sometimes it's hard to get them perfect, but I feel like that's pretty round. I'm pretty happy with that one. All right, next we're going to do a ring of 16 with our blue 1 millimeter. I'm going to use my stylus because I don't have a rod that's 1 millimeter. And your blue, we're going to do a ring of 16. I like to start with my north, south, east, and west and just keep breaking that in half till I get to 16. And I've got one in there that I am not happy with. There's always one. I always debate whether or not to fix it when I do stuff like this. Sometimes I make it worse. I think I can get this one though. There we go. Some ring of 16 in blue. So for me, these are on the lines. So my next ring is an offset ring of 16, which means I'm going to put them in the spaces. I'm using 1.5 millimeters. You can use a rod or a stylus, whatever you have for 1.5 millimeters. And I'm going to continue with the blue, and these go in the spaces. We're going to do 16 dots in the spaces. Next, 3 millimeters. You can use a rod or a stylus. I tend to make my dots more consistently sized when I use my rods, so I tend to lean towards a rod if I have it available. But we're going to do 3 millimeter ring of 16. Again, this one's offset, so we're back on the lines, and we're using green. One that I'm not real happy with. Like I said, I always get one. There's always one that's just a little off. Next, I'm going to get my 4mm tool, and we're going to do a ring of yellow. This goes in the spaces. We're going to continue through the whole, all 6 colors with the rings, but this is 4mm, another ring of 16 with yellow. Next, we're going to continue with another ring, 5mm with our orange. These go on the lines. Remember, as you're dotting, hold your tool straight up and down at a 90-degree angle. That will help you get more consistently round dots. And you're just giving the surface a little kiss. We're not stamping hard. All right, we're going to add one more ring here with our 6mm and your red. And these go in the spaces. we can shake it up a little bit. We've got lots of rings on there. Ugh, I've got one little hair stuck in my orange dot here. Gosh, I'm gonna mess all kinds of things trying to get that out. I can tell it's a hair from a paintbrush. Oh man. There we go. All right, next, we are going to use our 2mm stylus tool. You want a stylus because we're doing a set of double dots. And I'm using red 2mm, and I'm going to dip once and then dot twice. These go on the lines, dip once, dot twice. Dip once, dot twice, and we're going to do this all the way around. Then I'm going to grab my 4mm rod, and we're going to use orange. And next to the set of double dots goes a 4mm orange dot. So we're going to end up with 16 of those. These are on the lines next to the double dots. And in that same ray on the lines, 5mm rod, yellow paint. Right next to the orange dot goes a 5mm yellow dot. We're going to do 16 of these on the lines. Warm colors, especially yellow, tend to be more transparent, so you want these dots to be really juicy, really saturated, lots of paint. That will help not be able to see the background through it. We're going to continue working on the lines, 6mm rod and green paint. Right next to that yellow dot, we're going to put a green. Oh, thank you, Heather. Heather says my pacing tonight is perfect. I've been working on that, and actually, I feel like I've been working on that even when I'm not dotting on a video or live. I've been taking more time to breathe, and what I've noticed is that when I dot, I hold my breath trying to get things perfect, and so I've been trying really hard to just kind of take a deep breath in between dots and breathe, and that's been really helpful. All right, the next step after we do the green, I'm going to set this aside for just a second. We are going to work with some stars, and I'm going to show you how I make them. I'm going to use on my pattern white stars, and they're going to go in between these orange dots, but I'm going to show you in a dark color just so you can see how I make them. So I take a dotting tool and I'll place the center of my star. Now this is 2 millimeters. And then what I'll do is I'll take the tiniest stylus that I have and I'll pull a little point on the top. I pull a little point left and right and then down. And so I made this one a little bigger than normal just to show you how I do it. If you want to, paper's not the best thing to practice on, but you know, we can't all practice on the expensive stuff. So I use paper when I practice. But I just make that little dot. I pull up, then I pull right and pull left. And then I pull down into the points at the bottom. And so you might want to practice that just a few times before you get working on the actual piece. If you really get frustrated if the stars are not your thing, there are a few different alternatives that you can do. There are star rhinestones. For those of you who are in the box membership forever ago, these were included in one of the boxes. These would be a good substitute. They're just little star rhinestones. So that's an option, and that adds a little bit of glitter as well. Or you can just do a white dot. Don't feel like you have to do the same as us. Hearts are also an option, and hearts are pretty easy. Hearts are basically just 2 swipes. So using my 1.5 millimeter tool, so lots of options. Don't feel like you have to do exactly the same as I'm doing. So in between each of these orange dots in this ray, I'm going to place a white dot. I'm using 1.5 millimeters for that little dot to pull from. And then my tiniest little needle point to pull it into the star shape. And this part of the design is going to take us the longest. We have another ring of stars coming later and a center star as well. So take your time with this. Don't rush. Don't hold your tools too tight. Make sure you're breathing. Relax your shoulders. I know we're all probably working on these stars at different speeds, so I'll give everybody just a minute here. All right, for the next step, we are going to add some white double dots, and I'll show you on my sample here. So we're going to go back into this area with the rings, and we've got the double dots in our red color. We're going to double dot in white next to the orange and next to the yellow. So what I want you to do before you double dot is kind of judge the spacing that you have there. I've got a lot of room on my sample, or on the guide. It says 3 millimeters. Now, if you can't fit a 3 millimeter dot in between your orange, go down a size, go down to 2 millimeters. It's your call, because we all work with different spacing sometimes and that kind of thing. So use your best judgment. Don't be afraid to switch up the sizes if you need to, but the pattern calls for 3 millimeters. And what we're going to do is dot in white, and then next to the orange we're going to dot, and then next to the yellow continue dotting. So we dip once, dot 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's not often I'll go back and work on the inside layers of the pattern, but it is really important before we do the stars on the top layer that your bottom layer is dry. And so when I created this pattern, I made sure that I did the stars and then went back and did some more. So some of this stuff had the opportunity to dry, because you absolutely can't scrape these stars if your paint is wet at all. Which is one of the later steps. We are adding stars on top of the green and then a star here in the middle. So that's why this felt a little bit out of order. The next thing I'm going to do is get a 2.5 millimeter stylus, and I'm going to use blue. And we're going to go to this outermost ring of green. And I'm going to put a blue dot in the center, and then a swoop on the right, and a swoop on the left. And this swoop didn't want to swoop. There we go. I like to do my center dots first, so I'm going to go around with my 2.5 millimeter and do my center dots. And then I'll do my swoops on the sides. Fix my splatter. All right. So I've got all my center dots, and then I am going to swoop around the green to the right and to the left. right, next, what we're going to get into is, I'll show you on my sample, we are going to have a blue swipe that goes in towards the star, and then a purple swipe that goes out towards the edge. So again, use your best judgment. The pattern calls for 2.5 millimeters. And I'm going to start my blue dot right where that yellow ends. So I'm going to do my blue swipes upward. Make sure you're not hitting your white stars. I'm just going to use my fine point just to fix a couple of these that felt like they stopped a little bit too soon. I was being cautious. I didn't want to cover up my white at all, so. I'm going to do the same thing with my purple, swiping outward. So I'm going to start with my 2.5 millimeter stylus right next to that blue swipe, and I'm going to swipe purple downward or outward to the edge. once you finish with that step, that's pretty much the base of the design. The last two steps are to add a star in the center and stars on each of these green dots at the end. Now, you cannot do this if your paint is wet at all. I think, now I used my hair dryer just now, but I think I'm okay to demonstrate on the video. But if you have wet paint in either these green dots or your center, you definitely want to wait. So be cautious of that. But in the center, I'm just going to make my dot just like I did with the smaller stars. And then I'm going to pull it into a star. And I am going to try to line it up so that my top point is on a line. I see even with mine being pretty dry, it still hold that paint. So I definitely recommend holding off, but I'm just demonstrating for the sake of the video. All right, so place a star in the center. And then the ones around on the green dots are same as we did here. So a small white dot, and then we just pull it into that star shape. And so, yeah, mine's not even dry enough. I really need to let mine dry a little bit more. So I'm not going to be able to do this on video. But I feel like you get the general idea because we did the stars in that previous ring. So this is where I'm going to leave you tonight. I would love to see your finished piece. You can share with us in the Kaleidoscope Mandala group on Facebook. It's been pretty quiet in there, so I would love to see your finished pieces. Whether you create with me live or on the replay, it's always awesome when you share, or you can share in the share space on the website hub. And next week, we will be creating this fun design here. So it's got some mirrors. These are small mirrors, and my idea was to make it look like stained glass. I really liked it. A lot of this pattern, again, not really a difficult pattern, but time consuming because we move our way through the colors. And I hope I'll see you there for that. It will be a long live next week, so if you don't have a big chunk of time to set aside, you can always watch on the replay. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining tonight. Those of you that hopped on, I think we had 3 or 4 all at the same time at once, which was a good feeling. It's been quiet around here lately, but that's all I've got for you. I'll see you next week. Good night, everyone.